Hello, and welcome to another Energon Universe discussion video. Today we turn our attention to the recently published Void Rivals number 4, which gives us our first glimpse of Cybertron in the Energon Universe, but we'll get to that in a bit. Issue 4 pulls back from the action-heavy third issue, shifting to a drama that's much more character-focused, as Solila makes the intentions behind her double-cross from the previous issue a bit clearer. Feeling duty-bound to help her people, she gambles that Darak would make for an extremely valuable hostage, one that could potentially be traded for much-needed resources. However, Solila still values the bond she and Darak forged, though there's definitely still some distance there as we see as she shoots down the Agorian's suggestions that they became friends during their ordeal, countering that they're not friends, but they're no longer enemies either, deciding that the most appropriate term for their relationship is rivals. Regardless, Solila doesn't want any harm to come to Darak, something that slips when she's in the presence of Zertonia's premier, Zalilak, I don't know, dude, these names are killing me. Anyway, when Premier What's-His-Face asks Solila if she saw Darak's face, she hesitates, just long enough for the Premier to suspect that something is off, and he throws her in the cell alongside Darak, where the two await whatever is in store for them. The big twist in this issue comes at the end when it's revealed that the Zertonian Premier and Darak's father, the Agorian Minister Dulan, are secretly conspiring together, although to what ends remains unclear at this point, though it does seem Solila and Darak are being considered as sacrificial pawns in service to whatever their larger plans are, with Dulan pulling a I have no son, leaving Darak to his fate. Heavy as the head of a total asshole, I guess. And as previously mentioned, the big Transformers moment in this issue comes in the form of a very short segment that follows the Skuxoid's attempts to collect the bounty on the Quintesson that we saw last issue. And that takes us to Cybertron, where Skuxoid unsuccessfully tries to barter with Shockwave, who makes his first appearance in the Energon Universe. Kirkman and company are again drawing from the cartoon lore here, as it appears that Shockwave is in charge of Decepticon operations in Megatron's absence. You may remember in the first episode of the cartoon, prior to his departure, Megatron entrusted Cybertron to Shockwave, a job that, if we're being honest, Shockwave completely ran into the ground. I don't know what he got up to in the 4 million years that Megatron was gone, but I can tell you it wasn't solving the Energon crisis or bolstering the strength of the Decepticon Empire. Cartoon Shockwave was kind of a loser compared to his various comic counterparts. Remember when he tried to stop Skyfire and just ended up making it easier for him to escape? What a chump. Cool voice by Corey Burton though. Anyway, Shockwave's character design here is clearly cartoon inspired, but a lot of the added detail seems to match up to Quake Blast, an unofficial masterpiece scale Shockwave produced by third-party company Cloud9. I'm not crazy about that choice personally, because I'd prefer to see artists put their own spin on the details in these designs, but ultimately it's fine and not that big of a deal really. There isn't much here about the Decepticons or Cybertron in this issue of Void Rivals, just a hint of how dire the situation is, with most of the Decepticons on Cybertron in stasis due to the Energon shortage, and the implication that Shockwave's gone completely broke trying to secure resources. What I find most interesting about this brief section is that it seems like it could be turning the previous cameos of the Skuxoid and the Quintesson into a recurring element that might actually be building towards something, or at the very least keeping those characters in rotation rather than shuffling them off after a one-and-done appearance like I assumed was going to happen, or at least I hope that that's the plan. These 2 pages would seem like a really random thing just shoved into the story if not. I'm hoping these characters will continue to play a part, weaving in and out of the main story, maybe serving as something like tour guides to some of the far-flung corners of the Energon universe, or even better, in my opinion, building to something else that'll connect with the story of Void Rivals or another title in the Energon universe. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I hope not, because the idea of the story feeling like it's expanding and becoming more complicated is a big part of why I liked this issue quite a bit. Feels like we're going towards something with more bite to it, and it's seems like there's more moving parts now after spending time in a few sparse and relatively straightforward issues. After surviving the planetoid and Skuxoid ship, it feels like we're potentially leaving some of those isolated settings behind for something more substantial, which I think is the right move. It probably helps that we spend the bulk of issue number 4 on Zertonia, which is pretty much everything I hoped it would be. If you saw my video on issue number 2, one of my criticisms was that the small glimpse of Agora that we saw was somewhat plain and disappointing in terms of the art. It just didn't live up to the high standard I was expecting from Lorenzo de Felici. Fortunately, this issue finds de Felici avoiding giving Zertonia the same barren, featureless treatment that Agoria received in issue number 2. As a result, we get a really nice snapshot of Zertonian civilization, a mix of a kind of high fantasy medieval feudalism and a technologically advanced science fiction dystopia. There's a lot of background detail throughout, but I particularly like this panel. This is the kind of scene-setting imagery that I live for in comics, and it's nice to see it here where it was previously absent. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this issue. It was nice to get a teaser for the Transformers side of things before the first issue drops next week. There's some great stuff with Handroid throughout the issue, and spending so much time on Zertonia was pretty satisfying. It seems like we're headed for a more richly layered narrative, and I'm intrigued as to where it's all going. It feels like the story is starting to take shape, and we're ramping up to some larger scale conflicts with higher stakes beyond Darak and Solila's immediate survival. This is where it's going to start to become more interesting, I think, but we'll see what happens in issue number 5. But that's it on Void Rivals number 4. As always, thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Transformers number 1 is imminent now, so it goes without saying that the next Energon Universe discussion video will be focused on that, so stay tuned. Fingers crossed Skybound delivers. Until next time, take care.